Hi everybody, Prism here. I recently, it's probably no secret to most people that either know me or have been on the channel at all, that Gren Maju is my favorite deck. Just banishing mechanics and the question mark attack and defense, even as a kid, has always been something of a draw to me, I guess. With, things like Thousand Eyes Restrict being one of my favorite monsters of all time. I recently, though, went 4-0 at my locals with a very different Gren Maju list than I would normally run. Well, I missed, a lot of the stuff that having 50 to 60 cards can offer with the tech, giving you more chances to fire off Gizmecs and Desires, etc. Without actually decking yourself out. This build is specifically made to blind second and FTK your opponent. So 40 card main deck, which usually I don't recommend, but in this case, it worked for me. Obviously 15 in the side for various utility, and banish fodder for either, the extra, and then utilities in the side. That kind of shifts what the deck's aiming to do and gives it a little more defense against things that it doesn't really have anything to protect itself against. So, we're going to first go over the main core. So, running 3 Gren Maju in the main, I know that a lot of people will opt for 2, but I don't really believe in that, because if you accidentally banish both of the other Grens and you're not running specifically like Gizmek Okami and they're face down, you don't get them back unless you get a Necroface, which I'll get into later. And plus, it's the boss monster of the deck. Rarely is this ever in my hand twice, and if it's in my hand once, it's usually something that I want to see there. Next, I run 3 copies of Eater of Millions. This is a really overpowered card, I feel like. Whether it attacks your opponent's monster, or whether your opponent's monster attacks into it, it can just simply banish at the beginning of the damage step. And it gains attack just like Maju for each banished card face down, but it also gains attack for your opponent's face down banished cards. And this can trigger things off like your synchros and stuff later, but I'll get into that and mention it as it comes up. We've got 3 Gizmek Orochi, the Serpentron Sky Slasher. Usually I refer to him as Gizmek because he's normally the only one I run in a 40 card variant. In the 60 card variant, it features Makami because specifically in the text it tells you that you can return 6 banished cards, which includes face down. So, you basically can get 6 cards back into your deck in a dire situation that you might really need, or you banish some stuff off of Necroface, which I'll get to that as well. So, very good card. Banish 8 to special summon from your hand or your graveyard, and then you can banish 3 if it's not the same turn you use the other effect from your extra deck to pop a monster on the field. Very good card. It's mostly looking to fill up your banished pile. Next, the limited my boy, Necroface. I get why they did it, because the DD Dynamite stuff, but Necroface is your savior in this deck. If you get this in your opening hand, keep it, because you're going to be banishing for Gren Maju, and then all of a sudden you're going to be at 6 cards or 7 cards. This can completely save you from being decked out and losing the game. And it's not too bad of a beater early on if you get a Desires and a Gizmek or something going. So overall, I think that these 4 monsters are the core of a Gren Maju deck, any Gren Maju deck, to be honest. Gren Maju himself, obviously, Eater of Millions, Gizmek Orochi, and Necroface. Moving on to the spicy stuff. So a lot of rank 8 engine things are going on here. We have 3 Danger Bigfoot and 3 Danger Thunderbird. Danger Thunderbird and Danger Bigfoot share the same effects of your opponent gets to choose a random card to discard, and then while you're discarding, I was getting a little ahead of myself, an effect will go off depending on if you hit this or if you hit a different card in your hand. TLDR, you hit a different card, that goes to the graveyard, special summon one of these. If you have a Gizmek in your hand, it's extremely nice because you can essentially pitch your Gizmek, potentially, it's a, kind of up in the air because it's a random monster from your hand that your opponent picks, but that could be basically a free special summon from grave. And yeah, Bigfoot, if it hits itself, can pop a face-up card. Thunderbird can pop a face-down card. Very, very strong cards, and they're both big old beat sticks with 2,800 and 3k attack. If I could speak English for the rest of this video, that'd be awesome. Okay. Now moving on, we've got the Kaiju engine. I'm running 3 Gandarias and 2 Dorgans because it's what I have, to be honest. I would prefer maybe a Gandaria and Gamma Seal combo, and then switch it to the ratio being 2 Gandarias and 3 Gamma Seal. However, the Gamma Seals I've had, I have sold. And then on top of that package is a Lava Golem, just in case they get, a card that can protect another card, and you still need to tribute that off the field. Next, this is for the synchro stuff in the extra deck. We have Assault Synchron, which, amazing card, takes 700 damage, special summon it from your hand. It's a level 2 tuner. It has some other effects about Synchro Dragons, but not super relevant for this. It's more of the level 2 tuner part. Kind of the same with Krebons. It's just a body to have on the field that doesn't die to normal attacks for a few turns. That also synchros into a lot of other stuff. You can get it out with E-Telly, etc. I found if you run 2 Krebons, though, you don't really need the E-Telly, and it removes sort of an unnecessary spell activation, I guess, if you want to call it that. And last, to round out the monsters, is Dino Wrestler Prankertops. Need I say more? Just special summon the lad. If they have more monsters, pop a monster on their side of the field. Maybe even just, bait out a negation or something. That's usually what I use them for. So, that's going to be your monsters. And then, the spells. So, kind of like how I was saying, Gren Maju, Eater of Millions, Gizmek, and Necro were the core of the Maju deck. I think that the other core, at least in terms of spells, has to be Pot of Desires. And it's limited to 2 now, so that's what we run. Banish 10 to draw 2, insanely strong in Maju. And while we're at it, since we're running a rank 8 engine, I'm going to run 2 trade-ins, and then because we're planning on OTKing our opponent, why not throw in an Upstart Goblin in there as well, just to get as much draw value as possible. Now, we're going to also be running 2 similar cards, but I'll sort of explain. So, Foolish Burial is a little easier to explain. You want to dump your Gizmek from your deck if it's not in your hand, so you can special summon it from your graveyard and banish 8. Whether that's for Gren Maju, whether that's for Eater of Millions, whether that's for Necroface, anything works. Gold Sarcophagus, this is where it gets a little more interesting. You can banish a monster face up, and if you banish Necroface face up, he's here somewhere. If you banish Necroface face up, both players banish the top 5 cards of their decks. Really good way to kind of get a look at what your opponent is playing, especially if you're forced to go first, and then you can pop this card out. Like I said, this is sort of meant to be a blind going second deck. We have kind of a combo here. So, Dark Ruler no more and Raigeki. Dark Ruler just to negate the effects of all their monsters, and then Raigeki obviously to blow up the board after that. And then on top of that, we have an Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, which is essentially, I would say Raigeki, but it's actually a Torrential Tribute. And then it summons a Kaiju on both sides of the field, which coincidentally, we only run rank 8 Kaijus. I'm sorry, level 8 Kaijus. And this can allow us to get into synchros. More on that later. Super Polymerization. I don't think I need to say much about this card. It's an auto win if you're using it in the right context. And it's extremely powerful. And then we've got 2 last ones here that also go a little hand in hand. We got Monster Reborn, because if you are blowing up their field, what better way to OTK your opponent afterwards than stealing one of the monsters from their graveyard? Originally, I dismissed this because it's a banished deck. Why am I using Monster Reborn? Because I wasn't thinking of using it on the opponent's monsters to finish them off essentially on my first turn. And then, pretty self-explanatory, Change of Heart to control one of their monsters. Kind of the same concept as Monster Reborn, but one on the field instead of the graveyard. And that's that. That's the entire deck. There's no traps. There are in the the side deck though, and I'll get to that. Now moving on to the extra deck. So, Link monsters running a Relinquished Anima. This basically, if it's in the zone and you have an opponent's monster in this zone, for example, that it points to, you can use it as an equip, and this card will gain that monster's attack, and if this card gets destroyed by any means, that monster also is destroyed. Pretty self-explanatory on that. Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn, Nightmare Cerberus, basically bounce a card, destroy a card, special summon monster, and destroy a back row. Next, we've got, they're fighting me. Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. The amount of times I'm able to make this with Gizmek and gain its secondary effect of this card is link summoned using a level 7 or higher monster as material. Your opponent cannot target it with card effects, and it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So, it cannot be destroyed by non-targeting removal, and it cannot be targeted by anything else. Very strong as it is, plus the 3 extra effects on there. Essentially, one is attack twice next turn if you destroy a monster. The other is 1500 attack gained, and the last is banish a card on the field. Next, Topological Zeroboros. This is another gains a bunch of attack based on the amount of cards you have banished card, but you can also use this to blow up your opponent's field, but in a way that banishes all of their stuff. So it's almost like a walking evenly matched, but it's like a dark hole that banishes instead of sends to grave is probably a better example. And then we have, to round out our links, Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. Link 5. Very easy to summon 4 monsters out with this deck, and if you get 4 out and you can summon her, she's really good at almost being like a Link Super Poly in most situations. If you can't use her, or you don't have the hand to make her, you can always use her as banish fodder for Eater Millions summon. Next. So, now we're getting into a couple synchros here, and I think I'm going to start with the easiest one of the bunch, being Leo, the Keeper of the Sacred Tree. So, Leo as a effect is just basically cannot be targeted by card effects except for your main phase 2. Meaning that not your opponent's main phase 2, but your own. And that's pretty insane. I've had a lot of games where I could have made a different rank 10, but I'm sorry, I keep saying rank. I keep getting situations where I could have made a different level 10 synchro, but this one has been the one that's come through the most. 3100 attack, it's just a beat stick. It's very good. Next is Rudy Rose Dragon. This is a little bit of a situational one. It can be banish fodder for Eater. Its main purpose, though, is its effect where it can banish all the cards from both players' graveyards. This really messes with some people's decks, and honestly helps this deck out a lot. So, love to run this card, Rudy Rose Dragon, excuse me. And then the main level 10 synchro, Sword Soul Chaining. So essentially, this guy, if you get a card banished on the field, not during the damage step, which is extremely fucking easy with this deck, you get to banish a card from your opponent's face-up field and their graveyard. The other thing about it is that it's going to gain 100 attack and defense on top of its 3k stat line for each of your banished cards. And it's also going to take away 100 attack and defense from your opponent's monsters. And then if it was going to be destroyed, you can banish a card from your graveyard instead. That card is insane, mostly for the effect where you can banish a card from their field and their graveyard. It really just kind of completely screws some decks over. Alright, now we're getting into the Xyz. I can finally say ranks without being wrong. So, the first Xyz monster I'm going to get into is going to be Alessi, the Sylvan High Protector. So rank 8 because we have so many level 8s in the deck. Alessi, you can essentially, so you call a card, excavate that card, and then after that, you want to do a sort of guessing game of what you have left in your deck, and then it's like, okay, so I want Gren Maju, and then this is your deck. So you go to put the card in the graveyard. If it's not Gren Maju, you can use Alessi, I believe, to bounce a card. Let me double check. Yeah, so you get to bounce a card back to either the top or the bottom of an opponent's deck. And it's really good, especially if they have some kind of card that they had to tribute out, for example. Being able to send that back, getting rid of things that cannot be destroyed or cannot be banished, stuff like that. Very good card. Our other rank 8 is going to be Zombie Stein. Literally just for its attack stat, to be honest. Although the quick effect's nice, where you can negate a monster's effect on the field. That's good too. And then finally, the main reason I'm using Zombie Stein is because his 4,500 attack. I can summon out Divine Arsenal Zeus, which needs no introduction, I don't think. But TLDR, blow up the entire field. And if you get enough material under him, you can do that multiple times on either player's turn. And then we have our 2 super poly targets being Guardian Chimera, which will let you draw 2 cards, mostly is the TLDR, and then TLDR for Starving Venom is that you can use, well, I mean, Guardian Chimera is going to be 3 different monsters. Starving Venom is going to be more for taking your opponent's monsters, super pulling them into this, and then using the effect to essentially gain more attack. And that helps with your OTK. Now, I'm going to move on to the side. So if you've been with me this long, I hope you guys enjoy. There is going to be a video very shortly, if I can get this one out first, on sort of a special opening, if you will. I don't want to reveal too much of it right now, but there's going to be a giveaway for the video. I'd love for it to be a big giveaway. It would be a subscriber giveaway, so make sure you sub if you're interested in that, and the video should be out soon. So, without further ado, let's get into the side. Again, a card that needs really no introduction. Nibiru, the Primal Being. Your opponent summons 5, you can special summon this, and then you summon a token to their side of the field, and basically wiping out their field, which is extremely good for just pure for hire and stuff like that, where they're trying to get as many monsters out as possible, or if you're stopping like Marincess, Link Chains, etc. Next. Yes, Link Chains. Next. Infinite Impermanence. Again, card that doesn't really need introduction, but I'm going to give it one anyways. Hand Trap lets you negate a card on the field. Really good for stopping an opponent in their tracks if they're trying to do anything, you know, that you don't like, I guess. Can be summed up. Harpy's Feather Duster is in the extra deck because it doesn't always work in the main, because if you're trying to OTK your opponent on your first turn and it's turn 2, unless they drew a really bad hand, they're not going to have many set cards, or unless their deck is built for that. So this is cited because it doesn't come up as often. Speaking of something that does not come up as often, but has come up for me so many times that I've now cited this fucking card into my deck. Royal Decree. So, negate all other trap effects on the field. The main reason I am using this, and it's a continuous spell, is because of the continuous spell Imperial Iron Wall, which basically reads, neither player can banish cards. I think that is the exact text on the card. And that card alone will destroy this deck. So if somebody for some reason has that cited against you, or just runs it, you're screwed. This is your savior for that. And then obviously the Harpy's Feather Duster does help as well. Next is going to be Called by the Grave. This is just kind of a no on, you know, a lot of hand traps or something. If you're trying to get your turn 2 going and they're running a hand trap heavy deck, just run Called by Forehead and then just have it in your hand, you know. Heavenly Zephyr, I don't think this card gets enough credit. The main reason I say that is because it's essentially just a free special summon out of your hand if your opponent special summons from their extra deck that also negates their extra deck summons effects, which a lot of them they want to use the turn they summon it, and this turning that off plus being a body to block for you that can be 2600 is extremely useful. So Contact C, where do I begin with this? There's been decks that I've run into, specifically branded, that just can't seem to deal with Contact C. Like, no matter what, as soon as you get it on their field, they are screwed. They cannot get into their extra deck anymore because they have to use this as material. And there's so many more. Marincess and Trap Tricks also come to mind, but this just really messes up a lot of decks. Link decks, it really doesn't do anything to. Fusion decks, I think it hurts the most. If I had to take a honest guess there. So we've got a few cards that basically read, no, you don't get to summon, and also F you, man. Starting with Solemn Strike, you know, if you're gonna special summon a monster or a monster effect activated, I can pay life points and negate that. The Solemn Warnings are kind of the same thing, except if a monster will be special summoned or a spell or trap or monster effect is activated that includes effect that special summons a monster, you pay 2000 LP to negate the summon or activation. If you do, destroy the card. So this comes up a lot because a lot of decks will want to search out a starter and then, search out another searcher in their beginning. I'm trying to think of like maybe BA with Tour Guide or something. They search Tour Guide and then they try to play Tour Guide. You can Solemn Warning that to avoid their search. Grand Horn of Heaven is kind of the same thing, except it's more of like an extra deck thing. If they're special summoning a monster, you can negate that, destroy it, and they draw a card, and you just end their main phase. Especially turn 1, for them, if you're going first and this is already on the field, really devastating if they get a card out and they're able to flip that. It's another card I feel like needs really no introduction, but again, I'm going to give it one anyway. Dimensional Barrier, the TLDR, all you really need to know for this is it locks your opponent out of their extra deck based on whatever card type you choose, whether that's Rituals, Fusions, Synchros, or Xyz, etc. Even Pendulums. I think the only one that it doesn't affect is Link. I just checked that for you. The only one that doesn't affect is Link. Which, much like Contact C, is just sort of, you know, a shame. Okay, so let me cook. Hear me out. Synchro Zone, I feel like, is one of the best and most underrated floodgates in the game right now. So it basically just sits on there and doesn't let your opponent attack unless they use Synchro monsters. And against decks like Branded, for example, that really just don't run Synchros, very good card. The other aforementioned decks also very good against because they're, you know, Xyz, etc. respectively. Links, pretty much anything that you're not going against specifically Synchro monsters, it will kind of mess them up and give you a few turns, and hopefully you can summon out your Chinying, etc. and do a bunch of damage because it's the only monster that can attack. Next, I have 2 soul absorptions because life points. You can easily get above 20,000 life points with just 1 soul absorption. Having 2 is nice, and it's just kind of honestly in here because man, I love the card so much. I just, you know, sometimes I want to side it in. That's really just kind of it. You gain 500 life points for every card banished, by the way. That includes your opponents, and these are just tokens, so it doesn't really matter. So, I just did a lot of talking. I usually don't do this much talking for a video. But, that was the Gren Maju deck profile. Like I said, I went 4-0 undefeated. I 2-0'd 2 of the games, and then 2-1'd 2 of the other games. I even ended up beating the store's manager in the last final game. So, honestly, all in all, amazing deck. I love just everything that it can do. It seemed like even if people were trying to side against me, nothing mattered unless they sided Imperial Iron Wall, and then I was screwed. And then I would have to go into my side deck and add in Harpy's Feather Duster, or, you know, like a Solemn Warning. Yeah, Solemn Warning, etc. So you do have answers to the things that this deck struggles against. And you do have cards you can take out. For example, Upstart Goblin, you can take that out. You could take out one of your kaijus. You know, there's room, essentially, and I really like that about this deck because it's just extremely flexible, and I really like that for a deck that's sole purpose is to gain a bunch of attack points and punch somebody for all of their life points. But without further ado, I've kept you here long enough. I hope you guys enjoy the video. I know this is kind of a longer one and kind of a weirder one for my channel. It's not really like a VOD, which would be expected to be longer. It's not really like one of my main kind of content videos. But like I said, if you want to be entered into a giveaway, into the next video that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be partnering, sort of in a way, with another YouTuber to open up some very interesting things Yu-Gi-Oh related. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in the giveaway, which I would love to do a big giveaway for this video, you know, make sure to subscribe. And, you know, if you don't like that video, if you don't like the video that you're currently watching, why are you still here, man? But you can always unsubscribe if you don't want to continue to see the notifications and things like that. I completely understand. But that being said, I hope you all have an amazing night, and or morning, I guess. Without further ado, this has been Prism, and that's been my deck profile for Gren Maju. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.